Chapter 3: 4 Trends that are impacting the business world. In this chapter, I will attempt to depict the major trends that are impacting on the world of business today and going forward. The word trend is closely located to the notion of time in the sense that it implies or tries to explain a phenomenon, dynamic that used to occur, is currently occurring, and probably, I stress on the word probably here, will continue to occur in the future. Trends can be reversed or new trends might suddenly emerge. Therefore, it is wise to be cautious before relying on trends to open a window into the future. However, for the sake of building a coherent argument, I have chosen to rely on 4 trends that I believe, based on my experience and observations, are likely to impact on the world of business, if not the entire world itself. Bear in mind that this is a simplification of a very, very complex, multidimensional, and dynamic business world. Besides the fact that the 4 trends that I have chosen are by no means comprehensive, they are closely interdependent, they deeply influence one another. First trend: speed, frequency, and impact of change. The first trend that I would like to discuss is speed, frequency, and impact of change. Change has always happened in our world. Now, however, its speed, frequency, and impact are enormous and are felt almost instantaneously. I have experienced this trend firsthand during my career as an independent expert. In this part, I will share few of the incidents that occurred and consolidated my belief about the high impact of the change acceleration trend on our careers, organizations, and governments. While facilitating improvement projects for my clients, I typically go through various phases. The first phase aims at the alignment of the expectations of the stakeholders about the desired outcomes as well as the methodology to be adopted to attain it or them. The second phase consists of data gathering and fact-finding to understand what the current situation is. During the third phase, I typically facilitate the process of comparing the current situation to the desired outcomes and determine the gap. Next comes the fourth phase, in which I work on initiatives that would bridge the gap. During the fifth phase, I facilitate the process of deploying the initiatives. Finally, during the sixth phase, I measure the extent to which the desired outcomes were attained and recommend adjustments in case need be. I have often found that while working on engagements with clients in different countries, by the time we reach the deployment phase, the data gathered about the current practices and/or technological systems is obsolete. Back in the year 2005, I was hired by a bank to support in the development of their policies and procedures. Shortly after completing the data gathering phase, the French Central Bank communicated new circulars aiming towards curbing money laundering activities. This has led us to change the entire project to align with the new regulations. The new circulars kept on coming periodically at a fast pace. This meant that drastic changes were occurring within the period needed for us to develop policies and procedures. How can one possibly develop a reliable and valid system based on very dynamic parameters? In the year 2005, I worked hard to train myself and get specialized in the European Foundation for Quality Management, EFQM Excellence Model, since there was a high demand from the public and private sector organizations in Dubai for experts in this field. Within the span of 3 years only, the demand for support in this area has started to decline drastically. Any such kind of specialization used to be leveraged for decades in the past, whereas in this case it was relevant for 3 years only. To me, the multitude of projects that I have worked on is repeated evidence on how quickly the changes are occurring. Furthermore, when I first became an independent expert back in the year 2003, I had an objective to build a clientele in the same way lawyers or physicians do so. After 2 years, I was under the impression that I have achieved my objective to a certain extent. However, I discovered later that the vast majority of the people who hired me as an expert have either changed employment or just disappeared. Some of them have changed jobs and or relocated up to 5 times over a time span of 9 years. As a matter of fact, in a cosmopolitan city such as Dubai, the average duration of employment is around 2 years. Furthermore, many of the private sector organizations that have hired my services have gone bankrupt, and some of the public sector organizations have disappeared or merged. How can independent experts, a consultant, lawyer, trainer, speaker, etc., build a clientele within such kind of environment? Plausibly, the time of being the village doctor or lawyer that used to spend her or his life serving a certain community is coming to an end. The phenomenon is also linked to the increased human mobility trend, which I will discuss later in this chapter. Drawing on my observations on what's going on in the world, it's enough for me to look back at the last decade to grasp the importance and relevance of the speed, frequency, and impact of change trend. The 2008 financial crisis, problems within the European Union, and the Middle East domino revolutions caught everyone off guard. Governments are still busy trying to cope with the repercussions of many of these, only to find that a new crisis is emerging. The economic cycles are becoming shorter and with higher peaks and steeper downturns. Another compelling evidence for the accelerating change is the rapidly declining life expectancy of corporations. The average life expectancy of a company in the S&P 500 was 75 years in the year 1937, and it is estimated to be around 14 to 15 years, 5 times less in the year 2011. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research, the economy has peaked twice during the last decade, in March of 2001 and December of 2007. It has also reached its lowest point twice, in November of 2001 and June of 2009. However, during the preceding decade, the economy peaked only once, in July of 1990, and bottomed out in 1991. The last decade has been labeled a decade of climate change by National Geographic. The advent of GPS, smartphones, social networking, etc., has affected everything. Whether we choose to believe it or not, these changes have a big impact on businesses. This trend may be the most important to recognize and utilize. What are the implications to our lives? During the first 3 quarters of the 20th century, individuals were able to build an entire career based on a single training or education. It was also common that a job was passed on from parents to children. The increasing frequency of change, combined with the longer life expectancy of humans, means that our lifespan would witness more and more disruption going forward. The current average career duration of 40 years, typically from ages 25 to 65, equates to almost 3 times the average life expectancy of an organization, around 15 years. Therefore, at the present day, plausibly, we need to retrain or even totally reinvent ourselves 3 or 4 times during our active lives to remain relevant. On the personal career level, over the span of 17 years, I had, besides the countless minor short-term adjustments, to reinvent myself at least on 4 occasions. I started to work in the supply chain for a retail manufacturer. I moved on to become a project manager in a media company, then to an independent expert working for the private sector organizations. And finally, I made a switch to being an expert for the public sector agencies. Furthermore, I had to change my main residence 3 times, relocating to 3 countries in 2 different continents. The key learning for me was that what's more important than what one knows is one's ability to learn, adjust, and adapt. I learned that one needs to reinvent herself or himself while remaining faithful to his unique DNA and character. An analogy would be the story of the Volkswagen Beetle, which was reinvented itself for more than 6 decades to remain relevant. Yet, at the same time, it has kept its original value proposition. That's why it was able to survive gigantic technological change. Second trend, convergence of global knowledge. I now move on to shed some light on the second trend, convergence of global knowledge. More than at any time in history, the amount of shared common global knowledge is rapidly increasing. The knowledge that used to be confined to libraries and physical buildings is currently spread out in virtual libraries. It is easily accessible to a phenomenally bigger number of people in all 4 corners of the globe. The conversion speed of the implicit into explicit knowledge is increasing exponentially. For example, before the advent of the Internet, once a person was not feeling well and visited a physician to treat her or his condition, the doctor used to have almost an exclusive access to the different diseases and their related therapies. During the post-Internet era, one could have easy and cheap access to the latest studies about the various conditions, and more importantly, one could share her or his experiences about what she or he is experiencing within virtual forums where people who have had similar conditions exchange tips and advice. If the knowledge about complicated exact sciences is widely accessible, what would then be the case for the inexact human sciences such as management? The knowledge is more widespread in this case. According to The Guardian magazine in the United Kingdom, in May 2009, the world's digital content was over 500 billion gigabytes. If we were to print this information into books, it would be stretched from Earth to Pluto 10 times. Not only that, but the digital universe is expected to double in size each 18 months. Social media sites constitute an additional powerful vehicle for exchange of knowledge that did not exist 15 years ago. Hundreds of millions of people are using Facebook and Twitter, to name a few. The convergence of global knowledge trend has revealed itself heavily in my work as an independent expert supporting a multitude of public and private sector organizations in numerous countries in North America, Europe, and Asia. For example, once I started supporting banks in developing their policies and procedures, I had absolutely no knowledge about the financial rules and regulations. Luckily, abundant information was readily and cheaply available to me on the Internet. In the year 2004, I was supporting a bank located in Paris to develop their policies and procedures. My client asked me to make sure that the procedures were compliant with the French, European, and international banking standards. I researched on the Internet and found abundant information that helped me deliver high-quality service to the client. Once I decided to become an independent expert, the people who discouraged me to do so frequently cited my lack of knowledge to extend value to my potential clients. After working with around 80 clients in various sectors, I hardly can say that the lack of knowledge constituted any challenge for me. The real challenge was the difficulty to manage people's behavior. I was invited to a prestigious university in March 2011 to facilitate a workshop about the management consulting profession. While going through my presentation, I noticed that students were at the same time running quick internet searches on the terminologies that I was using. Collectively, they had access to more information than I could or any lecturer deliver to them at any point in time. I concluded from my so-called teaching experience that if universities did not reinvent themselves soon, they would find themselves irrelevant. They no longer can offer the transfer of knowledge as their main service. They need to focus more on innovation to update the available body of knowledge. In other words, they will be more like research centers as opposed to a place where students acquire knowledge. In the year 2008, I was hired by a Dubai government agency to support in spreading awareness about the European Foundation for Quality Management Excellence model. While delivering the first training, I noticed that many of my trainees had already made an internet research about the subject matter, and they had more information than I could deliver to them. I have had the opportunities to support organizations in the developing as well as the developed countries. For example, I worked for the same bank subsidiaries in Paris, Dubai, Romania, and Beirut. As part of my work, I had to interview the staff. My observation was the staff located in Beirut and Dubai were as technically knowledgeable as the staff located in Paris. Moreover, the employees whom I interviewed in Dubai originated from at least around 20 different countries, and I noticed that their level of technological knowledge was even more advanced than the employees in Paris, because the diversity of their backgrounds translated into the exchange of a wealth of information. I concluded from this that the gap of technological knowledge that used to exist among the industrialized world from one side and the emerging markets from the other is eroding over time. If anything, the emerging markets that are cosmopolitan, such as Dubai, have an edge over some developed countries. The modern city of Dubai started to emerge during the 1990s. Within the span of 20 years, the public sector became one of the best in the world, offering levels of service that even compete with the private sector organizations. What Dubai achieved in 2 decades could not have been achieved in centuries before. This is partly due to the ease of access and affordability of technical knowledge. In the year 2009, we were asked by Abu Dhabi Nuclear Energy Authority to bid for a tender aiming towards implementing a knowledge management framework catered for the nuclear energy field. We submitted a bid, and we were not successful in acquiring this engagement, yet we were pleasantly surprised to discover how advanced the Emirate of Abu Dhabi had become in the field of knowledge management. On a more general level, one could easily notice that knowledge is being shared much faster than ever. For example, in the 19th and first half of the 20th century, several decades used to elapse before the spread of an invention/innovation from its country of origin to the rest of the world. The inventions that come to mind here are steamboats, electric power, and the telephone, which reached some countries 50 years or more after their first use in their country of origin. By contrast, the new big inventions such as PCs, mobile phones, and the Internet were spread out within less than a decade to almost all countries in the world. The same applies to management practices and models that are now swiftly available to almost anyone. Take, for example, this book, through which I am sharing my personal experience. Besides printing it and distributing it, I have the option, which did not exist 20 years ago, to distribute it through the e-book channel. Therefore, the knowledge that I have can be shared swiftly and be less costly to a large number of people. What are the implications for our careers? Since knowledge has become a commodity, I thought that I could no longer gain a sustainable competitive edge and be successful relying solely on my education. I must seek to differentiate myself outside the pure pursuit of gaining access to knowledge. When I decided to quit my job and become an independent expert, I had little knowledge about my diversified clients' respective industries. Yet I managed to differentiate myself and offer value to my clients through using my unique soft skills. As a matter of fact, the only unique asset that an individual possesses is her or his DNA, which is the underlying builder of her or his unique personality. The latter translates its uniqueness to the world through distinguished soft skills such as leadership, communication, etc. If used adequately, our soft skills, not our technical knowledge, would grant us a sustainable competitive advantage that is less prone to erode over time, as it is not highly susceptible to technological change. Third trend, ease of communication. I now move on to the third trend, which is ease of communication. As it is widely known, technological breakthroughs have tremendously improved communication over the last 2 decades, especially since the advent of the Internet. According to Eurostats, the cost of communication among the European Union countries has been cut in half from the year 2000 to 2008. What used to cost €2 now costs 1. Going forward, it would be not unimaginable that the day might come when all voice and picture communications are free of any charge. As a matter of fact, some of them are already. With 3D picture communication already in place, who knows what the future holds on this front? Back in the early 1980s, things like video conferencing used to fall almost under the realm of science fiction. During the late 1990s, the new thing in corporate meetings was the conference call. We'd pile into a room around a big table and set up an audio and video feed to our offices on the other side of the world. We all thought this was state of the art. It was very expensive, too. Now, however, these expensive audiovisual conference call systems are being replaced by hassle-free, cost-free applications that are available on smartphones, such as FaceTime or Skype. I experienced firsthand the benefit of this trend. At the time I'm writing this book, I'm supervising out of California the final Masters in Business Administration MBA projects for Strathclyde University students located in Glasgow, United Kingdom, Dubai, and Singapore. I frequently conduct teleconferences with the students over Skype free of any cost. I also run projects with partners in Europe for clients located in Asia through organizing teleconferences. I would have never foreseen 10 years ago that I'd have at my disposal such powerful communication tools to work with clients, partners, and students located halfway around the globe from where I reside. Here's another example of how I experienced the benefits of the ease of communication. As I mentioned earlier, in October 1999, my previous employer decided to relocate to another country. I was offered a promotion to move with the company, which I refused. As soon as I resigned, I felt liberated from the psychological pressure associated with my future in the current company. Stepping outside the situation helped me see the bigger picture more objectively. Although I was leaving, I decided to help the company through this big change. I had a vision that resided on the simple idea of bringing forward the relocation of the operation by 3 months prior to the end of the year. The end of the year being the relocation date initially planned by the company. This would eliminate the normally lost time needed to adjust at the beginning of the new year, and thus would impact positively on the coming year business results. Practically, I came up with an innovation solution based on the latest communication technologies, virtual private network, that was available at the time. This was at the end of the 20th century. I shared my vision with the senior management. From a psychological standpoint, my colleagues were not ready for the relocation to happen abruptly, and shortly after the announcement of the intention to relocate, they were still dealing with the shock of the relocation announcement. So they resisted it. But the senior management bought into it and implemented it. I helped the organization implement this idea. It turned out to be the right move and helped it kick off the year fully operational, which impacted positively on its financial results. This has ultimately worked favorably in the interest of everyone in the organization. The senior management told me that I had a vision, and they followed me. With only 4 years of experience, to be able to genuinely support the relocation of a subsidiary of one of the most successful multinational organizations constituted a great triumph for me and a great boost for my self-esteem. As a matter of fact, this was my first experience playing the role of an independent expert, not having any stake in the change, and helping an organization deal with change imposed by unforeseen events in the environment. I could have never achieved this without the help of the state-of-the-art communication tools that were available at the time. As an independent expert working for clients in different countries, I made good use of the commercialization of data communication through satellite. It meant that I could stay connected with my clients and partners in France, Romania, Dubai, etc., at all times and all locations. From October 2008 to January 2009, we were supporting the Dubai Roads and Transport, RTA, in conducting internal assessments for their 48 departments that aim towards investigating the level of their adherence to the guidelines of Dubai Government Excellence Program. During that period, RTA launched high-value services to Dubai residents. One of those was to enable individuals to pay their parking fees by using their mobile phones. This was done through the integration between the parking system and the mobile phone service providers. Such kind of innovative services were only made possible through the tremendous progress on the communication front. What are the implications for our careers? Some people believe that the omnipresence of communication tools in our lives is detrimental to our personal life and subsequently to our happiness. What they seem to discount is that it grants us a greater freedom to not be tied to a certain physical location. As it is the case for everything, if used in moderation and wisely, the ease of communication would actually help boost our quality of life, as well as improve our productivity and business success. In a world where agility is crucial for long-term survival and success, the ease of communication trend provides powerful tools enabling independent experts to mitigate the economical and geopolitical risks of the countries of their residence, and thus penetrate markets that stretch beyond the boundaries of their regions or nations. Fourth trend, human mobility. The last trend that I will discuss is human mobility. Globalization has facilitated cross-border traveling. Air traffic is fast growing. After World War II, in the mid-1950s and 1960s, commercial aviation really took off, so to speak. Before then, only the wealthy could afford to fly. One trip, an American entrepreneur didn't care for this, so he started his own airline, Pan American World Airways. This was the catalyst for other entrepreneurs and businesses such as Boeing, Douglas, and Lockheed Martin to start building multi-engine passenger planes. According to the World Tourism Organization, in the year 1950, the worldwide total of travelers was 25 million. That number has risen substantially over the years. 806 million in the year 2005, and 940 million in the year 2010. The projected number of travelers for the year 2020 is around 1.4 billion. It has become so easy for people to move around the world. Not only has the actual traveling part become faster, but it has also become more economical. In cosmopolitan cities such as Dubai, there are residents from almost every country in the world. They typically work in Dubai and go back regularly to visit their countries. During my employment with Adidas and later on with Showtime Pay TV, we had employees originating from more than 50 nations from all continents. During my work as an independent expert, I had to conduct data gathering missions with employees from all over the world. What are the implications for our careers? I have experienced the implications of this trend in my own career. Growing up, I never would have envisioned that I would one day move among several countries in different continents to work on multiple projects at the same time. At one time during the year 2005, I was working simultaneously on consulting engagements for different banks in Paris, Dubai, and Beirut. I had to travel weekly to be at my client's premises. It was as if I was an employee of 3 companies located thousands of miles apart. The increased human mobility trend means that boundaries and distances no longer define our target market where we offer our expertise. We can simultaneously be part-time staff of a company in South Africa, Russia, the United States, and Japan. A significant portion of people associate globalization and free trade with negative implications for their local market, such as exporting jobs overseas and loss of competitiveness. What they are discounting is the fact that globalization also means that their job market is actually the entire globe. Who knows? In the future, it might even be beyond it. While recollecting, for the purpose of writing this book, the events that have impacted on my career, I realized how global my experiences turned out to be. As a matter of fact, incidents that originated from all over the world, Russia, the United States, Europe, Middle East, etc., defined my journey. This constitutes solid evidence about the extent to which countries and markets are nowadays interconnected. Human mobility has increased drastically the exposure of different cultures to one another. Individuals are finding themselves compelled to deal frequently and on a daily basis with people from other cultures. This creates a challenge for organizations that consist of ensuring that people from different backgrounds are transacting and dealing with one another in harmony. From here, the need arises for management experts to focus more on researching the cultural part of management. I have noticed that despite the fact that there are abundant publications about management models, few tackle the multicultural aspect of management. The students whom I supervise for the Master's in Business Administration thesis almost always complain to me that they can find only few publications dealing with the cultural part of management. There are two main implications for human mobility to the independent experts. The first one is the ability to make the entire globe as their market. The second one is the challenge to be able to deal and adjust to different cultures. In summary, I have chosen to discuss these 4 trends. 1. Speed, frequency, and impact of change. 2. Convergence of global knowledge. 3. Ease of communication. And 4. Human mobility, because these are trends that have had the most impact on my career, especially after I became an independent expert. As a matter of fact, those trends are by no means the only ones impacting on the business world. Furthermore, they are closely linked and interdependent. For instance, the ease of communication is fueling the convergence of global knowledge and vice versa. For example, the advent of social media sites has provided a vehicle for exchange of knowledge. Also, the increased human mobility is impacting on the convergence of global knowledge and vice versa. As more people move around the globe, they are exchanging more information. The same is true for the speed, frequency, and impact of change, which is partly the product of the convergence of global knowledge, ease of communication, and human mobility.